And what we're going to be talking about today is AI chat, specifically how to help detect it. That being said, there is no perfect science to this yet. So, are you guys seeing the whole orange square now? I'm
Yes.
fighting Zoom's settings there. Um, but let me bring up. I'm going to bring up chat too. So if you have questions or comments along the way, feel free to chime in. I'm going to show you the different tools that are, well, three different tools that are available to check specifically chat GTP, and we'll GPT. We'll discuss what it is, what it does, and talk about a little bit the future of it. But this should be, feel free to think of this as a discussion as much as a training, because the tools themselves are quite simple. And then I have a couple resource pages for you that you can bookmark at the end. And this is something that's ever evolving. I think Josh has gone to as many sessions on this as I have, and it feels like every 2 weeks, every session brings out different and new information. So that's why I say this is partly a discussion. So what is AI chat? What is chat GPT? I work in marketing. I've been doing marketing for years. Calling this AI is a marketing term. It is not artificial intelligence. It is a step towards it. Um, this is very much like your email program, your texting program on your phone that autofills the next word ahead of you. It is a predictive text generator. That's what this is doing. It's guessing the next word. This is just taking all that to the next level, right? I remember back when I was a kid, I was probably like 14, working with a program called Eliza, which was an artificial intelligence chatbot, but it fit on a floppy disk, right? It only had so much data. Now they have a ton of data. This is the URL for it. I have all these links. I'll share this presentation with you guys at the end as well. So what does GPT stand for? It's generative pre-trained transformer. Transformer is it's generating text and transforming it into language. So it's taking stuff that's already there, basing it on a model, on an algorithm, on a pattern, and spitting it out as if it's language. Um, Again, I'm kind of simplifying this entire process. This is kind of my favorite part of AI chat and chat GTP right now. Oh, look, a typo. Yay. I can't change it right there. Chat GPT is not connected to the live internet. Right now, it's cut off at 2021. So all the data that it has is basically anything on the internet up until 2021. So 22, 23, there is no information. So especially for your English instructors and other areas where you're talking about current events, it can only guess based on whatever text is in there. And Chat GPT is also known to do what they call hallucinate, and it makes up stuff. So you can tell it to write a story about the historical figure John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, and it will do it. It'll create facts, it'll create all kinds of different stuff about this fictional person that you can just make up any name and it'll just give you a whole biography about the person. You can have it write a resume for you, right? Just make up all, I want to apply for this job, make me a resume that this job, right? So it'll just make up stuff, completely altering facts, and it's not made to, it's not made for specific research. The other thing, as of literally this morning, there is now a paid account. They've been talking about this being free and changing to a paid plan soon, and it happened like today. Yesterday I went in and there was no paid account. Today there was. So this also brings up the side about, equity. Is this a platform? If this is a paid platform, this is basically pay to play, right? So you're paying for a bigger experience. There's a lot of issues with this. It is poorly built into the Bing search engine right now, and they are building a new search engine. I forget what it's called, that you have to sign up for, and it'll have a whole different search based completely on AI, or predictive text. And Google is adding one soon, and Google's is called Bard. Those will be again free at the beginning, but who knows by the end of the year. When this released in August, it was really on a second version. The third version of the algorithms got released earlier this year, and we should see a fourth version by the end of the year. Each time a version comes out, it gets more and more sophisticated. I bring all that up because as things change, the trackers can't keep up with it, right? So if you're using whatever I show you today, 6 months from now, I can guarantee you pretty much won't work. And the checker that I'm going to show you today that checks for ChatGPT won't necessarily work for Bing's or for Google's, right? Because their algorithm is going to be different. Questions so far? I know there's concerns, so I won't say questions or concerns. We're all good so far? Yeah, Jenny.
So you know how you said ChatGPT is not like connected to the internet anymore? Like, is it going to be reconnected and have updated information, or no, that's forever?
No, they can update it, but it's not live looking at the internet. It's a data backup. Okay. So it never was live.
So only if they choose to like give it more data post 2021.
Yeah, and I'm sure they will. It's just a matter of when. And then a lot of sources, where they're getting their data from, right? There's a lot of controversy over what they're allowed to use and what they're not allowed to use, right? And Turnitin has seen these same battles over the years too, where they're just scouring things on the internet and putting it in so they can say, yeah, this has been copied or whatever else. They're taking it and building a database off of everyone else's work and not paying for it. So there's issues on that side, which is more of the business model. I think I got these two things backwards here. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So we're gonna try this out. So what can ChatGPT do? The URL for ChatGPT is chat.openai.com. Briefly, it can create documents, resumes, things like that. It can explain complex topics. I put solve math problems in quotes because it actually doesn't solve math problems. It's not a calculator. It's looking, if you give it a math problem, it's looking at all that data that it has for the solution and then puts it and presents it to you. So it's not actually doing calculations. It's just grabbing whatever is there. It can write code and it can debug code. This is way more applicable to the computer sciences, where they can literally write software using this and just make a few tweaks. So that's a whole different genre. I won't get into that too much, especially since John Beck from CS isn't here. You can write song lyrics, you can write poems. It doesn't do a very good job at writing Vogon poetry. So sorry there. And it can translate text into other languages. How accurate is it? I don't know, but it can do it. And then, of course, it can write full essays, amongst other things. So let's look at some of these tools. And I'm going to re-share my desktop just so you see my entire browser here. And this first one, which is GPT-0, now forces you to log in. The other thing about ChatGPT and GPT-0 is made by the same company that produced ChatGPT. So this is specifically checking for their own algorithm. The other side of this is you have to log in and create an account. So there's some privacy issues as far as the content that you're putting in as a user and what you're getting back from it. So there's been a lot of concerns, especially from the academic side of like, how much data is this tracking, right? Let me go back one more and we'll go into ChatGPT itself here. So when you open up the software, I wanted to show you the first screen first. This is what you would see. So if you go to chat.openai.com, and I can put this in the chat window just for easy access. And you don't have to do this right now. You don't have to follow along with me. You can either sign up for an account or you can log in. If you go to log in, you can connect it to your Google account. I would be very hesitant about that because I don't want it to see all of my documents and everything else in my Gmail account. So I just made an account using my email address. And when you log in, you can see now there's this upgrade to plus down here in the bottom left-hand corner. But it kind of explains some details here. So I'm going to give it a question based on what we're talking about. What can ChatGPT do? And I want you to pay attention to how it's writing, what it's writing, and how it's formatting it, right? It's not just giving me a text response. This is where the AI part comes into place, right? It's giving me a response that I could literally copy and paste and put in my presentation, right? This is a component of an overarching piece, right? So you can plug in, and if I give it if I give it the same question twice, let's see if it does it the exact same way or not. But it'll tend to give you different responses. I think this is something that is standardized spitting out now. Now I didn't give it essay parameters, right? And look what it's doing. It's not really writing an essay, right? So I could say, give me a 200-word essay, give me a 500-word essay. It's giving me a list, do this again in essay format. What it's not doing, so while I'm in this chat session, everything becomes responsive. So it remembers everything I asked it, and it remembers its own responses. So if I say, do this again in a different format, it'll reformat it. If I leave the session and come back, nothing is saved yet. So the prompts I put into it, the prompts that I give it, if I give it certain information and then Gina comes in and gives it certain information, those two things aren't connected, right? It's just going off that old database. But what I want to do is take a chunk of this text, and let's say this is what a student gave me as a response. I want to check it and see what it gives me back as far as a response. So I grab the text that I suspect, and I've done this with a couple of students' work so far. And I click on this get results. You have to agree to the terms of service. And sometimes it takes a little while, sometimes it doesn't. We'll give her a second. There we go. So now it's asking for an account. That's fairly new. You have to register an account, agree, get results. Part of what's new in ChatGPT-0, if you've seen this before, again, this is the checker version, is I can do a batch file upload. So if I had, I don't know what the file types are, PDF, doc, and TXT. So if I get, a stack of docx files, I can upload those up here and and spit it out. So it says your text is likely to be written entirely by a human. I literally copied it out of ChatGPT, right? So let's go back and look at the next checker. This is a second one. I don't remember the name of it. It's actually called Hugging Face. I don't know why it's called Hugging Face, but that's what it's called. If I paste that text in here and I just hit enter, it says that it's 98% fake. So another detector is saying, theirs is saying it's very possibly written by a human, but this detector says it's 98% fake. There's a third one that I've come across, which is by a company called Packback, and they make a different suite of tools. But if I paste that in here and I say check the text, it says moderately, right? Now, for any of you that have used Turnitin, think of this in the same vein, right? Turnitin is not checking directly for plagiarism. It's not checking directly for cheating. It's giving you a score of the likelihood that the material is plagiarized. It's up to us as the instructors to decide what level, how many checkers am I going to run this through, how much effort I'm going to put this through to then have that conversation with my student. Where is that threshold? I like this one because it gives me a percentage of based on where this might be falling into place. This one is
Rob, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Which one is that one? I can't tell again. I'm sorry.
This is the whatever it's called. I know they all look the same, right? This is the Hugging Face one here, and I have a link to this up on the presentation later. This one is also based on how long the text is. So the longer the text, the more accurate this one is going to be. But also know this is based on ChatGPT-2. As of last month, we are now on ChatGPT-3. So until they update this, this is beginning to become outdated very, very quickly, right? But these are kind of the tools that we have right now, especially for ChatGPT specifically. Unfortunately, there is no direct yes, this is obviously cheating or however you want to put it out. I have links as well in here that Turnitin is working on a new tool that will be hopefully part of the suite and not an extra cost. They have a information webinar coming up, I think next month. I'll look at it specifically later and let you know the actual dates of that. And I really encourage faculty to go to this, especially the English faculty, to find out how Turnitin is going to be utilizing this in its platform. So like I said earlier, it's really about starting a conversation. It's not going to tell you 100% that this is cheating because it doesn't really know. What it's looking for is patterns of the text. Okay. So ChatGPT specifically is based on algorithms, complex algorithms, but it's algorithms. The creators of it also want to make sure that their text isn't being used and sold as, legitimate articles online. So they want to be able to track it online to make sure that misinformation isn't getting out there using their tool. So they're on the back end building a tool that will help them at least track what's out there and what's coming from them and what's not. The biggest thing that I can tell you, whether these trackers say that they're AI generated or human generated, look for spelling errors and grammar errors, because ChatGPT is hella perfect. We're talking 0 spelling errors, not one. Grammar is damn near perfect. So if you see a paper that uses spect or a response that you suspect is AI generated, but there's a lot of spelling errors, chances are it's not. That's one of your, like, that's what we've seen in the past couple of weeks is one of the biggest red flags. Things that we know 100% are human generated that even the AI chat puts in and says, yeah, or the checker says, yeah, this is AI. And you're like, no, it's not. And you can kind of tell because it's riddled with spelling errors. Questions on any of those three? They're really basic. Paste the text in, hit the button, see what it tells you. Actually, for this one here, I will put this one in the chat as well. This the ChatGPT-0 requires a login now. Whatever this one's called again, Hugging Face. I keep wanting to call it Butterfly something. I don't know why it's in my head. The Hugging Face one does not require a login at all. The Packback one does require you to put in your email address each time you use it. So when you come here the first time and you go in, it says like, we want to know that you're using this, but it's completely free. And the reason why they want your email address is they want to sell you other stuff. That's what they do. It's a whole different package that they're working on. They're actually working on a set of tools and assignments where you're actually using GPT in assignments as well. So that's why they want your email address. They're not tracking your information that you're putting in there. Yeah, Wanda.
Oh, this is totally new to me. Are we investigating this because we have now incidences of students using this generator to write papers? Or
that's the concern. Yes.
The concern. Thank you.
Yeah. And and I had conversations with the folks, the powers that be, so to speak, on campus that deal with plagiarism and cheating, and there was some concern about whether this is really plagiarism or not. And 100% this is plagiarism, right? If you are passing off someone else's work as your own, that is by definition plagiarism. ChatGPT on their website specifically even says that if you copy and paste text from this, you are plagiarizing. It's very, very clear. So, and I'll get into some other solutions in a second too. Yeah, Barbara.
I just blanked. Oh, and yes, I mean, some of us are already starting to see it in our classes, and I can't imagine that it's not happening on discussion boards. That would be, especially asynchronous classes, I'm sure, are at risk. My question is, why do you think the checker that was developed by ChatGPT itself is so inaccurate?
I think it's behind. I think they're not keeping it up to date with version 3. Yeah. And why? I think they're just overwhelmed, right? I think they're just falling behind on keeping up with the Pandora's box that they opened up on themselves. It's reality. I can tell you Josh and I have had this conversation in different circles. Every thing I've gone through from the state about OpenAI, one of the big refocuses, which doesn't work for every discipline, but it's moving towards more project-based learning, more creative assessments. So project-based learning, again, being more specific, comparing or having students reference current events, comparing, if you're in a history class, compare something from the past to something that happened recently within the past 6 months, those kinds of things. Making projects that are more like in Bruce's for radiology, geared directly towards real life scenarios. The more projects you have, the less basic knowledge checks, the harder it is for students to cheat. I have 3 of these. Number 2, creative assessments. Our assignments. We just did 2 sessions, one on Wednesday for students, and then one yesterday for faculty, and it's recorded and on our website as well, on how to just allow students to be more creative with their assignments. So instead of just a presentation or just a paper, having them use video tools, having them spice up, and I can show you some examples if you want, but like I'll give my students the choice of either write this paper comparing and contrasting these two things, or give it to me as a Google slide with a video interview and all this stuff, leaning away from making it a choice and making it mandatory to be more creative, right? The idea is that they're more engaged with the topics, they'll just want to cheat less. And then using it in class, showing students that you know how it works and that you're not afraid of these tools can actually help deter them from using it. And then put it in your syllabus. Have an assignment that you specifically use ChatGPT on it. And then for the other assignments, you explicitly say there's no ChatGPT allowed for this assignment, right? Be very specific about what's okay and what's not okay for each assignment. I do want to throw out the caveat, like I said earlier, that there's some concerns about ChatGPT tracking or collecting data from people. So be cautious about requiring students to use the tool, because some students may not want to use it at all, right? In my marketing class, we do a lot of generation of taglines and coming up with short versions of longer text. So one of the exercises that we are going to do, I think next week, is to have them run a couple of taglines through ChatGPT and see what it spits out. And then they come up with their own. And then the other students have to guess which ones were AI generated and which ones they came up with on their own. Right. So we're going to have some fun with it. So it doesn't have to be a hugely serious assignment. But this is the reality is that these kinds of tools are going to be where a lot of professions are going to be heading towards, especially in the computer sciences. Also understanding where students are coming from when they want to cheat and plagiarize. A lot of you will know this stuff already. None of the project-based learning, creative assignments, these little tips here, none of this is new. This is stuff we've been talking about for years, right? So if students are struggling to understand the concepts, if they're under a lot of pressure, if they're experiencing outside stress, if they're experiencing peer pressure to cheat, any of those will push them this direction. What is different with ChatGPT is it makes it so much easier than before. It's not new. This isn't a new way of cheating. It's Google, it's super Google, right? As these tools and engines have come out over the years, it's just easier and easier to have access to these things. As the paywalls go up, it will possibly limit some of this stuff, but we'll see. And then again, just like with Turnitin, having that conversation around what's going on will be where you want to head with your students. And we'll do some more Q&A and have some more conversation here, but now's a good time, if you haven't already, to take out your phone if you want to. And I've got some QR codes for you. And I'll put the links up except for this first one. So coming up on March 8th from 2 to 2:50. Actually, Josh, do you want to just plug this? If you're still there.
You included my slide, Rob.
Of course.
Thank you. Just wanted to follow up Rob on this one. Rob, Ellen Carey from the library, Justina Buller, our faculty professional development coordinator. All of us are going to be holding a panel on Wednesday next week. To have that as sort of an informational session, to be able to gather faculty input on what concerns that they have about ChatGPT. Although we did ask that question in an initial application form about what concerns that they have. And we had a few responses that people had entered in, but a lot of people just want to be tuned into the conversation because this is all very new. ChatGPT was only launched in November 30. And we do have some initial countermeasures for it. But like Rob said, this is very quickly evolving. And probably for me, the biggest concern is an equity issue. For me, And in particular for Rob and for Ellen, we've been saying we have to learn how to teach alongside this, because this is the future that our students are facing, and they need to know how to be able to work with this. And certainly there is a lot of negative sentiment to be had about it. And for rightful concerns. This is our art form. This is what separates us from others who are less skilled in a capitalist system. And so many people are worried this is our jobs at stake here. But at the same time, there are also ways to be able to change the ways that we teach in ways that we really should have changed a decade and a half ago, maybe even longer than that. And so part of this is also about saying, how do we teach with this? So we welcome you to come in. We'll share what information and takeaways that we had from the recent California Community College Distance Ed Coordinators organization, and what they've also contributed on this talk. So feel free to join the conversation. It'll also be recorded, and there are already departments that have reached out that said, can you do this in a department specific manner? And certainly willing to meet with departments as well.
That's another good point, especially, and I'm glad that there's so many people from English here too, but other departments as well should really be thinking about having an internal conversation about what this looks like and what are the potential effects and implications on your specific discipline. We have a website, and I'll leave this up for a second, and I'll show you what the website looks like. And I'll put this link in chat as well. But this is a site that we're trying to keep up to date. And I'll bring this slide back up, I promise. So there's a few things on this web page. And first off is a few articles. Now, I am handpicking these articles that are a little bit more on the positive side. There are a bazillion, doom and gloom articles out there about ChatGPT. So I'm trying to look at articles that are kind of how can this be more useful? How can we really work alongside it? How can we detect it? Those kinds of things, right? Where can this work for us, not against us? So that's where these articles are. I'm just letting you know there's a bias to what articles I'm specifically putting up here. All those links, all those detectors that I was showing you are all up here. When Turnitin develops theirs, as they add it, I will put it up here. If you're interested in it, they have a website right now that has a little video of a demo of what they're working on. It is not ready for prime time, but you can kind of see how it gives you that same kind of originality score as you're used to seeing in Turnitin if you're a Turnitin user. They have two sessions. They're identical sessions. So there's one on the March 13th and one on March 17th. You can go through here. I want to show you how to sign up for these because they're confusing to sign up for. And this is with the Community College League of California. If you click on that link, which I just lost my other website, is okay. Click on register here. Notice it says academic integrity and blah, 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 but this is specifically on Turnitin. So this is going to be their demo. Click the register here. It'll open up in a new tab, and you'll see a calendar. And you click on the date you want to register for, and then click on the time, and then you can register. So same thing, the 17th. Click on the time, confirm, and then it'll ask you to log in and give you your thing. It's a little confusing interface, but I'm just kind of used to signing up for these things. The packback solution is also here. That one seems to be, this is the newest one of the three, especially what you were asking about, Barbara. So this one seems to be more accurate as of right now. In a week or two, who knows? But that's why I say I've been plugging text into all three and see what I get, right? I mentioned having syllabus sample text. These are just starting points. If you come up with something that's amazing and you want to add it up here, feel free to send it to me and I'm happy to add it up here. But this is just some text that you can add to your syllabus if you want to. There's by no means any demand for this coming from anywhere else that we have to add this in here. But there's just some information you might want to consider adding. Feel free to copy and paste this into your own syllabi and edit as you will. And then of course, like I mentioned earlier, I put this up here because ChatGPT is specifically calling out that people should not be representing this content that's being generated as their own. So that is definitely plagiarism. If you ever hear any question about that. The last QR code I will put up is just simply a link to this presentation, and I will also put that in the chat. So if you want to have, and a lot of the things in here are linked already, so you can go back through here and share this with others as you want, but we'll record this whole thing and have it on the FRC website as well. Any other general questions, comments? I know, Jeannie, you've been playing with some of this stuff and looking at, I'm sorry, Barbara, you've been looking at various things in here.
It's okay, we have the same last name.
I know. I was looking at
Sometimes
Barbara.
I get Barbara's mail and I'm like, there's
on my
I know.
on my screen, you're right next to each other too. So it's
Barbara
just
and I are cousins. We just don't want
much.
to tell anybody.
Think about how many Browns are in the marketing department and we're not related at all. So I get it all the time. But I guess any of the English faculty, really, have you guys been detecting any of this stuff? What's your concern level at the moment?
I mean, I have one that, I mean, one of the things we have going for us, at least teaching in person and, you know, with smaller classes, is that most of us know how our students write, and we talk to them and we work with them. And so usually it's, whether it's ChatGPT or it was a friend or it was, you know, something off the internet, you can usually tell. It was just a matter of managing it. So no, I have one, and this is a student who skipped 2 weeks of school and said, look, I did this in one day. He's not very sophisticated. He didn't cite any sources. So it's already, you know, a problem that way. And then the sources he listed, he did not cite them. He listed none of the information in the paper comes from those sources. So it's a pretty easy, this one's going to be easier to address. But when I took the information, you and I chatted a little bit, Rob, and I put it into those detectors. You're right. The one that was developed by ChatGPT said, "Oh, it's fine." But one of the other ones, and now I can't remember which was the other one that I looked at, said that it was about 50% generated by AI. So right. it to me, the robot, unless you tell it to have a particular style, and you can ask it to do that, and you can, by the way, you can ask it to cite specific sources. I've asked it to cite sources from particular databases, and it did it.
Yep.
This student just wasn't sophisticated enough to do that. So the voice, the ChatGPT voice in this particular paper is very clear, but it can be used in a much more sophisticated way than this particular student used it.
Well, and the flip side of that too is the old model, which is, you know, I'm going to pay for a database of pre-written papers, or I want to pay someone to write my paper for you. Those people are now using ChatGPT and selling it off as an original paper. And so the person who is actually turning it into you may not have used ChatGPT. They used a whole different way of cheating. But the person they cheated with was UC. So it's also a shell game on top of that. And I bring it up just to be, so we're all aware that it's, you know, it's about having that conversation with the student, right? Jenny.
I just came across one today that I think is probably ChatGPT. It's tough because the student's online. So, you know, having a conversation and connecting with them is tough. So I've already reached out, but I haven't heard anything. But I think a good idea for people is to have it play with it and have it write an essay, because it has a specific tone and structure that is like so bland that once you see it, like the one I saw sounded almost exactly like the thing that Barbara showed me. I mean, different topic, but, you know, just these superficial short paragraphs that have no really good concrete details, no voice, not one grammatical mistake in 4 pages, no citation. It's like, it's got like a certain sound to it that once you start looking for it, you would be aware. But I think people have to be aware of that first. Otherwise, they're going to go, oh my God, this student is amazing. Like,
bland and shallow,
yeah,
right?
like
It
they're
only goes
so
so
to the
far down.
point and it's clear and there's not one error. Holy mackerel, this guy is amazing, you know? So you kind of have to have faculty see that first, or faculty have to see it first to get a sense of, oh, this is how it sounds on any topic, you know?
Yeah, and a good point of that too is to take your own prompts, your own
Yeah.
assignments, put it in and see what it generates out.
Yeah, and for me, I ended up going back to like all the students' other work in my class. And I'm like, this sounds nothing like
Yeah.
him. You know, everything else has a voice and riddled with errors and et cetera, et cetera. And then there's a total mismatch.
Which is another reason they have lots of smaller assignments as you build up to larger assignments, right? Because if you don't have that, I think most of us these days have a lot of check-ins, but the old model of, you know, turn in your 3 big essays and that's all I want to see, or your 3 big exams and that's all I want to see. That is, if it wasn't clear before, that needs to go away. You need to have a pattern. Beth.
My biggest concern, and I think I had this conversation with Josh recently, was just about when I think about competencies for students, like one of the major things is having a relationship with them and that reciprocity and that feedback loop. So that's the most important thing to me. But it's also about integration, of being able to synthesize, being able to extract those main points and measure them and create your argument and your rebuttal, all those kinds of things. And so the thing that bothered me, I did try to use the ChatGPT. Finally, I couldn't get in before, but I took like the First Amendment, Martin Luther King's letters to Birmingham, and Thoreau, and I had it create like a differences and similarities list. And so that's the thing that I worry most about, is that you're taking away that opportunity for like the neuroplasticity of those connections. And like, I mean, I understand what you're saying about it's like, Google elevated, but it's like I feel like in some ways it's really a lot more than that. And it does that, those brain components that you want to help the students create those critical thinking things, those evaluative tools. And I know it's not perfect. I mean, the list that the chat gave me about was very mundane in terms of, this is about a large group, this is about a small group, so I mean, I get that. I'm like, thanks.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I understand that it's very superficial, but I just don't want students to miss opportunities to make these connections for themselves and develop these evaluative skills of how do I become a good editor and a good evaluator of sources and integrate. And, like I said, getting back to the relationship part, I feel like, I mean, I'm totally down with like, doing the reverse and having, flip the classroom and using the AI thing and have them create rubrics from it. And, it can be an extra student in the classroom, and, I'm all for that. I can do that. But I don't want to miss an opportunity to develop an authentic relationship with someone. So it really, I think I might cry if someone would try to cheat on me.
Yeah, and honestly, it's like that what you just described is exactly what you should give as a lecture in your class. And it could be a recorded video that you have in an online class, right? Where it's like, yes, you can do this, try it out, see what it does, and point out why it's not as powerful. And that's not the point of the assignment. The point of the assignment, and I think what I've noticed being in the position that I'm in and seeing instructions of assignments across the board is, as a whole, we can do better, right? We can give better whys of why we're assigning things to students, right? This is about building that neuroplasticity. This is about that. It's not about the task. Anyone can do the task. This is about forming yourself as to be a better human being, right? And so like giving people a real reason of why they're doing something. I get to cheat being in marketing because we get to apply directly everything that they do in class directly to the real world. So I get a little bit of an out there. But it really helps when students understand why they're doing what they're doing. Josh.
And I just wanted to speak to what Beth and Rob have said. I mean, it's really about encouraging a dialogue with your students. And that's the kind of relationship that you have with them with their writing. Even if you suspect that they're using ChatGPT, it's important to say this is the opening for a conversation to sit down and actually talk about what you're actually writing. And I think that's just good practice. I will say when it came to what level of sophistication that ChatGPT can offer, another community college decided to put it to the test, and they decided to see if it could put together their strategic master plan for the campus. So they did, and it actually turned out pretty good. That said, that's a level of sophistication that is required to be able to ask ChatGPT the right questions. And that says to me, that's really the practice that we should employ here. Because students are going to treat this like Google, like it's an answer engine, and it's going to spit out something bland. In the hands of a trained researcher or a very sophisticated faculty member, it can produce really quality work, which is the scary part of it. But again, if our students could do that, they'd be A students. They would likely be at another institution, frankly. But that also says there's an opportunity to teach students how to be better at asking questions in order to investigate. So I think that's also a starting point. And on that note, also bring, like Rob said earlier, bring your students into the conversation. My students have actually found it very useful to say, this is how they write at a research paper at a very sophisticated level that we sometimes throw our students at. We psychology faculty had to go through the ringer reading papers that were well above our literacy level. Now ask ChatGPT to explain this. And what will the students say? They will say, oh, it sounds like a book report. It sounds like the 5-paragraph essay, which we're trying to move them away from, frankly. But that's a teaching lesson in itself. I actually found that much more useful than just trying to explain, just from experience, what a research paper looks like. When students can actually say, here's what ChatGPT generated versus this is what an APA researcher writes, then they found it much more useful to investigate for themselves what the differences in writing are. And there are genre conventions that ChatGPT doesn't understand about writing. But that also says, learn how to teach alongside this, and we don't have to be worried about students using it. Let them figure it out.
Yep. In the end, connecting this back to the topic of today's session is there is no silver bullet that's going to say, yes, this is definitely written by AI, right? And that's the reality of it. I've given you 3 tools. There's other tools out there, but it's really playing with the tool, running it through the checkers, using your best analysis to see, is this something that's being plagiarized from a chatbot? And I think Beth and Barbara, and I think Jenny mentioned it too, the more perfect it looks, that's your big red flag right now, because it's that absolute perfection that even us professionals don't hit that level of perfection. All right.
Is the phone number? Sorry, is